greetings, good morning, good afternoon, good night, whatever time of day it is for you. My name is Justin Kulip, and the whole host of names I've always been known by. But you don't always hear me like talking what they really are. Today, as you can see, we're looking at extra credits, evil races, or bad game design. The reason I'm doing this is because extra credits doesn't have a great history on them. Taking a look into other things that I've done for them, and I'm talking about videos that I've personally produced. I have done one video. It's going to be linked in my Twitch channel if you haven't seen it already. But this one is going over bioessentialism and world building. And I'm going to just go ahead and cut to it. This video is garbage. I've already watched it. It's hot garbage. This is actually my third time watching through this part because I accidentally did not have my audio recording, so I had to start a new recording. Behind the scenes. Ooh. Oh, wait. Hold on.
Up top, please welcome James Mendez-Hose, who guest wrote that characterizing a whole species in your game as ugly, warlike, and malevolent might be harmful.
And right here. So, first off, I want to point something out. I did it on the first take that was not recording. But, I'm going to say this out loud so everyone can hear it. These orcs are traditional Tolkien-esque orcs. They are kind of standard default evil race. This is not some uncommon or unusual thing to happen. Later on in the video, we're going to be talking a little bit about 40k, which is going to be lovely. But essentially, his argument here is racial coding, and they prove that they're not exactly as benevolent as they think they are. They are literally looking down not just through a racist lens, but they're being racist. Because by putting these two comparisons, these two images by side, they're saying every person who's ever used an orc in a video game is racially profiling black people. They're racially coding them in to be black people. That all they're there to be is evil and murdered. Which is something I don't agree with, and I don't even think that they should have done this. This image right here should not have existed in this presentation.
To real-world groups regularly mischaracterized as ugly, warlike, and malevolent. However, this video isn't that. Though if you want more on that
discussion,
yes,
it is. It's exactly that. It's entirely that. Because you're going to go further into racial coding, and racial coding is what this video is about.
Why characterizing a group like this in your game can be lazy at best, and at worst, actively harmful to the world you're creating. When designing a game's world and populating it with fictional species,
there's an
a
image I
designer might be tempted to differentiate them from one another by certain inalienable qualities, like their...
Right here. Right here matters. So, what they're doing is they're taking alignment, which is a D&D concept more than anything else, and they put moral in front of it. So, for anyone who doesn't know about D&D, and I'm not even a D&D expert, although, let me go ahead and show you where I sit. The last game I actually played of D&D was out of this book. Now, moral alignment is not stated as moral alignment. Now, modern books have a more up-to-date way of phrasing this. But alignments. Oh, this book. I forgot how bad this book is. Ooh. It does not even go. This book doesn't even get into alignments. Like really that big. There's lawful good, lawful neutral, lawful evil. You have a true ethical compass. Neutrals for the same, good, neutral, evil. And chaotic, which simply means you essentially do whatever the fuck you want to do, period. Now, that's both a good thing and a bad thing, but you get a lot of chaotic, stupid characters out there. That has nothing to do with morality. Morality is a completely separate aspect of this, and it is horrendous that they're trying to equate the two things together. Alignment like this is not the same as what they're trying to present it to be.
Moral alignment. Violent versus peaceful, law versus chaos, good versus evil, and the like.
Again, none of these have to do with alignment. None of these have to do with your morals. Morality, at its core, is entirely subjective. You will never find an entire group of people who are not fanatics to a religion or fanatics to a specific type of cause who's going to say there is objective morality. Everyone else in the world who doesn't worship a book or worship an idol of some sort will tell you that morality is subjective. Ethics is a little bit different, but morality is always in flux because what is moral today may not be moral in 50 years. For example, it was moral 50 years, sorry, we're going to have to go a little bit further back for this one. 100 years ago, so 1920s, it was moral for you to take a 15-year-old bride. That was a thing. Same thing earlier in the history. It was moral for you to rampage through a city, if we go back further in history, for you to rampage with your army through a city and rape a woman and walk away. That was considered a moral act. And actually, for people who ever talk about chivalry, that's included in chivalry. Thank you very much. So don't confuse moral with good and evil.
It's a common trope in speculative fiction, but especially in the context of a game, painting an entire species with the same moral brush actually weakens the entire thing.
No, it doesn't.
This idea that a certain subgroup, like race, nationality, or sex, has inalienable traits is called biological essentialism, or simply bioessential.
So, this is people making up words. Bioessentialism boils down to inalienable traits that people have regardless of whatever it might be. If you are born a man, you are born more logical. And I'm just going to head and skip this argument. Because there's no reason for me to go into it.
Pit bulls are a violent breed, men are more logical than women, or Asians are better at math. Now, chances are, if a game is set in the real...
Now, he's going to jump ahead and treat the two things as the real world and the video games are the same. And they are not. A great example of this, let me move my nose rags out of the way, is this game here. This is Infamous Second Son. Now, the Infamous series has an alignment system, which is supposed to be based off of morality. There is no way someone who's shooting lightning bolts out of his hands, or someone who's running around stealing other people, absorbing other people's powers and making them their own, is going to be considered a moral person. It is a video game. It is a work of fiction.
World that the designers are avoiding these tropes because they aren't real, as multiple fields of societal and hard science can readily prove.
Wrong! Again, this is where extra credits really pisses me off. Not only because they don't cite sources, which is, of course, what is said, what is posited without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. There are things to show societal and the way that people think are kind of hardwired. But I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to spend a long time deconstructing this argument.
But speculative fiction offers us an opportunity to reify or make real various things which don't exist.
Reify. You're using a $5 word, dude.
Exist, or to exaggerate things which do. Now, bioessentialism is a tempting idea in fantasy for some of the same reasons as it is in the real world. Because to our human minds...
Okay, and this is where I'm saying he's essentially getting into the argument he said he's not getting into.
Broad generalizations are comforting. They reduce the world to simple cut and dry categories. All orcs bad, all elves good, root for these folks, not for these folks. But just like in the...
But here's the catch. It's a fucking video game. People don't play, or at least broadly speaking, people don't play video games to relate to the real world. When I roleplay, I don't play Justin. I don't play my other personalities either. I don't play the part of me that wants to be violent and kill everything. I don't play the part of me that wants to belittle and demean everything. Sorry, I don't have an angel on the shoulder. I have violent guy and make them cry guy. But this right here, this argument is entirely wrong. If I'm looking to play a video game to feel diversity, and I'm playing a video game to try and feel out how I feel about something, no, that's not what I play video games for, period. Not one little bit. So, having a race, broadly defined as the enemy or evil, is just fine.
Real world, bioessentialism can present problems in fiction as well, specifically a moral one. The idea that a sapient species can inherently tend...
He meant sentient. That's the word he meant to say. Sentient. Sapien, by the way, probably just means it's not what he meant to say.
Towards good or evil acts, or lawful or chaotic ones. And that moral essentialism actually undercuts the greatest strength games can bring to storytelling.
And again, you're getting to morals being objective. Morals are never objective. They are always subjective. Gonna invoke Godwin's law here. But the soldiers fighting for the Nazis' army did not think that they were morally wrong. When Gandhi went on his food strike, failing to eat, that he saw as a moral action, while others would see it as an immoral action because he's killing himself. So some people see that as an affront to God, and because it's an affront to God, it's immoral. Moral, there is no objective morality. Not one little bit. It never has been. Even the Bible, which so many people hold up as an objective morality with its 10 commandments, don't follow those 10 commandments, as later on, they do kill people. They fight in wars. You're not looking at something that is 100% always moral. There is no objective morality.
The player's own power to make meaningful, interesting choices. And
players aren't here to make meaningful choices. Again, Infamous. You have two paths you can choose. Light side or dark side. You cannot finish the game without picking one. It's its greatest weakness in my opinion, but I think you should have like a neutral option.
Judgments for their characters, including moral ones. So if a game's creative choices apply a moral valuation to every member of an entire species before the play...
Again, you're talking as morals as your alignment. Those are not the same.
Players even meet them. Well, now that's just taking that power away from the players.
No, it's not. Because the next argument you get into is stupid as fuck. But you're playing a video game. You're trying to escape from the real world, which is fucking shitty as balls right now. I do not want to have to think about the moral consequences of killing a slime. I don't want the prisoner dilemma, which, by the way, if you've never seen Spoonie's video, definitely watch that video. Counter Monkey, the prisoner dilemma, great video. I don't want to have to worry about the prisoner dilemma.
And in turn, if a group of orcs, for instance, doesn't even have a choice about their actions...
Because they're a video game! They are a fictional race!
Are they actually evil? Because look, if a person, say, destroys a house, we call that evil because they chose to do so. But if a tornado destroys a house...
Alright. I read the comments on this one. I forget who says it, but someone in there says, well, if just a tornado destroys your house, that isn't evil. But if it's a malaligned wind elemental, like has a face, yeah, you know what? It just might be evil.
Well, I mean, is wind evil? No. Therefore, if a game's world building chooses to program every member
slide.
of a species to destroy, aren't they more like the tornado? Now, if the player's character...
No, they're not. So, you're trying to use bioessentialism, which is a made-up word, to describe a cultural behavior pattern. The exception is not the fucking rule. It never has been, it never will be. That's the reason this argument fails on before it even tries to stand up. It falls right back on its ass. Because you're trying to use a moral compass to define a fictional character. This gets back to the Nazi argument that you had in your video a year and a half ago, where you're talking about you didn't choose this. And unless the video game tells you they were conscripted, then you are playing a Nazi. By the way, Battlefield 1 doesn't use that word once. Yeah, and you're not allowed to say it in chat. There's none of the iconography.
Are able to make moral choices, but an entire class of NPCs is inherently evil regardless of their choice, then the game is either...
Because the game has no choice. The NPCs have no choice in the way they behave. Do you get that? I'm going to say this a lot more, but between the probably 15 more minutes it'll take me to do this. The bad guys are NPCs. They are programmed to behave in a certain way. So, unless you feel like doing the coding for all of these creatures to have a possible moral outcome, go right on ahead. You feel like you have to do that. But I'm not going to ask a game developer to take another 6 months to produce a game just so the creatures can try to run away. Or you see them floating around town just doing nothing. If I'm playing a fantasy game, anything that is not human, elf, or whatever races are in the game, I'm going to try and kill it. Because I'm not looking for real-world moral values in a video game.
They're telling the player that moral choices don't matter, or it's simply driving a wedge between...
Because you should not get your morality from video games.
The player's morality and the morality that applies to the rest of the world, blocking the player from further becoming a part of it. For instance, in Warhammer...
Oh, you guys who know me long know I'm going to have some fun with this. By the way, I'm standing up again. Yes, I know. This is how much of a hardcore player I am. If you don't know what this is the special collector's edition of the 7th edition, I think, Dark Angels Codex. I spent a lot of money on this thing. And it's like 1 of 200. The reason I mentioned that is he's about to get into a really bad argument. I'm going to let it play out.
40K. This inconsistency is central to the Imperium of Man's villainous creed. Individuals' human choices make them good or evil, whereas aliens are created evil. And of course, Games Workshop made that choice to facilitate a war game where lethal violence is the only option. But then folks also saw that in the 40K novels and RPGs, which required more interesting narrative complexities, Imperial heroes have to grapple with and recognize the illogic of that creed based on their own experience. Okay, but now you might...
And that's where he's fucking wrong. Of all the fucking bullshit here, the rest of this is fucking moral wankery. And I'm not joking. All it is, I'm a better person than you because I think orcs should be good as well as evil. That's all that is. But that right there, this whole Warhammer argument, he fails to understand Warhammer. Every race in Warhammer is evil. And we're not talking about, I think I'm a good person. The Dark Angels, the codex that I showed you, the nice big green one with the gold leaf on it. I'm going to tell you a story about the Dark Angels. They're hunting one of their own called Cypher. They come, the Black Templars, which is another chapter of the Space Marines, picks this guy up. They say, you're going to give us our prisoner back because he's our prisoner. They're like, no, you're not. He's our prisoner. We captured him. He's ours. They fire up their macro cannons, everything. They begin to prepare to light them up. They're like, okay. Black Templars, back down. Send the prisoner over. The Dark Angels blow their own fucking race out of space, out of existence, to keep that one prisoner a secret. In one of the books, the Dark Angels have a city, this base, and someone filled this base with poison. The same guy who actually got captured, by the way. Like I said, I don't want to get super deep on this. He fills it with the poison that doesn't really hurt the Space Marines, but will hurt the rest of the planet. One of the people say, we're going to open this up. He's a greater value than this one planet. Basically saying the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Because this is just one world in the Imperium of Man. We're chasing after him. He goes to open the door, bolter to the back of the head. Everyone else straps melto bombs, which are basically microwave bombs, and blows their fucking chest out to protect the people of the world. Now, that's not a good person doing a good deed. That's an evil person who has spent his life raging war to anyone who does not agree with their society, all of a sudden doing one good act for one planet. They are not good people. They are horrible people. The entire of Imperium of Man is evil. The Tau are evil. Because the Tau will say, oh, well, you're a human. You can join our army, but we're going to castrate you. Eldar, they are the space elves, and they think they're better than you because they're space elves. They are clearly racist, and they're xenophobic as well. Dark Eldar, they murder fuck you. And that's not some clever way of saying it. That's literally what the hell they do. Orcs are violent mushrooms because they are mushrooms. The Tau, which is arguably the best moral race, don't come anywhere near being good or proper or moral as they're trying to imply.
Be asking, what if you're playing the kind of game where you're engaging in violence because it's exciting and fun, not because of its moral dimensions?
Those are called
the
looters.
meaningful choice is about tactics rather than ethics. Maybe the goal is to
Again, you're overlapping different things and saying they're all the same thing. They're not. A moral quandary is not the same as an ethical quandary. So don't take, oh, I'm playing a tactical game where tactics are more important, as the same as I'm playing a game where all I'm doing is killing other things to get loot.
take moral calculus out of the problem. Sure, one solution might be saying, all orcs are evil, go ahead and shoot them. But in that situation, as soon as someone inadvertently feels some empathy, as people often...
Again, I refer to the prisoner dilemma. So, if you don't know what the prisoner dilemma is, you have a group of people, they capture a group of enemies. Now, these enemies are rebels, or whatever they happen to be. Basically, you let them go, they're going to run back to their command and tell them what happened. You kill them, even though they're weak, they are now defenseless. You have the you are morally wrong. So, what do? Do you let them run back to their command and tell them what's going on, or do you kill them? This is the prisoner dilemma, and from what I've heard, it has killed entire games because people cannot come together on the prisoner dilemma, unless you're playing a bunch of murder hobos. But then they're not going to be weak and defenseless. You're going to have one guy you're torturing for information.
And do for anything seeming even vaguely alive, the easy answer becomes less easy.
All right, I'm going to say this again. It's a video game. They are not alive. They are ones and zeros. in a varying combination of 1 and 0.
And if the goal of your game is to stop players from engaging in moral debates and just fight,
because the type of engagement that you're talking about does not exist. It will never exist until quantum computing becomes a gaming thing.
some bad guys, you kinda gotta say something more reliable than, oh, it's fine, they were all born this way. Fortunately, the real world's made progress on this problem, because sometimes in this day and
No, I'm not evil because of my bad decisions. Nobody says that because they all think that they have the moral high ground. This is where your argument falls apart.
age, people actually bear visual signifiers which say, I'm evil, not because of where I was born, but because of the choices I've made.
Repeat last statement. This is talking about Nazis and KKK.
Such as Nazi uniforms and Klan hoods. Then in fiction, we have things like the Hydra logo, a clear visual signifier, but one that denotes choice, not birth.
No, it doesn't. It does not denote choice. People raised under a Hydra household is going to believe Hydra are the good guys. To the outside observer, to the person absorbing and reading or watching or playing that media, they see it as an evil. But that's only if you're inclined to already believe Hydra is the bad guy. If you see Hydra as a good guy, as fighting an authoritarian regime of the Americans, then know what? Hydra's a good people. This is where your argument falls apart. You're still trying to put morals as a part of bioessentialism.
And if the statement that a game is making with its backstory and symbols is that an enemy had a choice and they chose wrong, then that gets way less complicated.
Doesn't need to be complicated. It doesn't fucking matter to most players. This is, again, where the argument falls apart. Cult members that you are showing here are often born into those societies. They know nothing other than cult life. So this guy gleefully murdering the guy who thinks he made a decision to join this cult and become a ritual leader that you have here shown, he may have been born into that cult. He may have known no other way of life. But you're treating it as the same as if he made the choice. That's the crutch of essentialism. Jesus fucking
A game
Christ.
that's interested in uncomplicated violence. So whether a game does or doesn't want its players to overthink their characters' moral choices,
Unless the game has a morality system, your moral choices do not matter.
evil as a choice is just more effective than evil as a bioessential trait. But then, of course, if a choice is just more effective than evil...
Here we go. Here's a great example of it. This guy's learning to be evil. This guy here. This is a xenomorph that are born to consume fucking everything. The xenomorph has no concept of moral. Only the outside observer or the people it's attacking has a decision on if it's moral. And that's assuming it's a sentient creature with higher brain functions. Other than that, that is bioessentialism in a nutshell. I need to eat. I need to bring back prey for my queen to lay eggs in. That is my God, you don't understand this.
As a bioessential trait. But then, of course, if everyone wearing the evil team uniform happens to be an orc, or if every orc happens to have chosen Team Evil, the game wouldn't exactly be communicating that difference very well. A quick fix here would be to show some diversity in the evil team's hiring practices.
All right, this assumes Hydra, for using them as the example, Hydra is only hiring white people. Now that Hydra is only hiring white people, now we need to hire some other people. That's what you're pointing out here. And that is fucking wrong. Because we're not talking about an evil army. We're talking about a race being evil. Again, you are missing even your own fucking argument. You're trying to say bioessentialism doesn't exist. However, what the evil army can do is hire other races. No, that's not the fucking point you're even arguing. Most video games have more than one type of enemy. So the nice little diverse phrase you have here, by the way, that elf is supposed to be a little bit taller if you follow trends. The dwarf on the right should be a lot shorter. But if you're at this point where you're essentially arguing against yourself, how are you going to argue against someone like me? You can't.
Instance with evil humans and elves as well as orcs. Or conversely, introduce orcs who have chosen good and neutral as well
Yes, this happens a lot. Have you ever heard of Dritz the Drow?
as evil. And a good example of a series getting better and better at this over time is Mass Effect. Because in the first game, Commander Shepard never meets a nice Batarian or a fun Geth.
Yes, that's because broad generalizations can sometimes be true. Yeah, it's stereotyping, but we recognize patterns. So when we see, I've never played Mass Effect, by the way. So I see a four-eyed guy with a gun with his finger on the trigger, I'm going to assume he's an enemy. Until he puts that motherfucker away and talks to me, he's an enemy and I'm going to pop him in his skull.
But then, spoiler alert, most of these evil species turn out to be as complex and interesting as the human ones as the trilogy
Again,
progresses.
I can't argue
Broad
against this. I've
moral
never played Mass
generalizations
Effect.
about species or culture not only doesn't make internal sense, but it also leads to less evocative, less rewarding worlds and games. But we...
So, first off, you want to talk about provocative worlds? My God. You don't know what you're talking about. And this is seen. You talk about, in other videos, about being a game developer. You're looking for something that is completely immersive. You have to program billions of people on these worlds to have the true type of diversity that you're talking about. And you have to have someone thinking out all these little minute details. Hell, Watch Dogs even made an attempt at this. Whenever you scan people, you see likes and dislikes. Kind of funny. It's all RNG, but still. You're arguing against yourself.
can solve that problem by following our best creative instincts to diversify, deepen, and complicate the worlds we create.
No, that is not our instinct. That is not our instinct because broad generalization is how the human brain works. I see someone with their pants down near their knees. I see all of their underwear. They're wearing all blue or all red. I'm going to assume that they are a gangbanger because those are signs that they are a gangbanger. Is that entirely true? No, of course it isn't. But I see Mr. Dude here on the left, the demon, holding a sword, looking angry. I'm going to assume he's an enemy. I see Unibrow in the middle there, the orc. With I can't tell if those are boobs or not, so I don't know if I'm going to have to try and black box them or censor them. Because they don't look like muscles. I see him looking at me like that with that perpetual scowl. Yes, I'm going to assume he's an enemy. That guy, the Cyclops on the right, he may be smiling, but unless he starts talking to me, I'm assuming he's looking at his next lunch.
And its denizens. This way, players won't be incentivized to make snap judgments about our game's orcs or aliens or
Once again, you have hit the key identifier, walked right past it. Video game. Role-playing game.
undead based on moral absolutes or body types.
Again, moral absolutism, which is what you're trying to imply here, does not exist. There is no objective morality.
Instead, we'll all be driven to investigate, explore, and learn. Our players will invest themselves more in our games. And because they're...
No. They don't necessarily invest more in the world. And they normally don't play the game more because they're invested in the world. A great example of this is Borderlands 2, which is still a popular video game, still has thousands of players. I'm pretty sure it's hundreds of thousands, if not millions. While Games like Infamous, or not Infamous, Watch Dogs Legion barely has a community now, is overwrought with these exact things that you're talking about, where you have all of these small little diverse things about the characters, that you are no longer invested in the individual character because the character does not have any value. In a role-playing game, in a video game, it is hard already to get invested because you know they're not real. But what you're talking about is trying to relate it to a real-world actuary, which would mean this old white guy here on the left is not thinking of that orc as an orc. He's thinking of it as a black person. And should I kill the black person? That's what you're talking about here. And that's where you're fucking wrong. I see the green-skinned orc, and unless I'm playing orcs, it's a bad guy. Because from my perception as a player at the time, that is what he is.
Human, ask the hard questions to push our design into even more enriching and unexpected places. Plus, maybe if we ditch this whole evil races line of thinking, if one day orcs or extra-dimensional horrors or even isekai protagonists pop out of a portal, they'll offer us humans the same courtesy. I'd call that a win-win.
And then we get right in the fan fiction world. As we've gone over this very long video, you can see all of my issues. The video isn't just talking about moral objectivism. It's not just talking about how you need to make sure you're morally right when you're playing a video game, and game designers should help out with that. It's treating you like you're a child and then assuming you don't know any better about the video games. I've been a gamer all my fucking life. My first memories is on base in Korea. At least I think those are some of my first memories, but it's some of them. It's hard to tell. I'm way too old to try and remember when I was 4 and 5. Playing River Raid on the Atari 2600. I wasn't good at it by any stretch of the imagination, but I have spent my life playing video games. You're trying to take something that is supposed to be for entertainment and make it a religious experience practically. Saying, oh, well, if you think about it this way, orcs aren't really evil. They're just kind of these people who, they have their own lifestyle. What do you mean that they raid other orc villages or they raid human settlements for food and resources and other things? No, that's not them being evil. That's them just surviving. And that argument can be made. I don't want it in my fucking video games. I'm not playing video games to fucking bounce into the real world and pretend for a moment that I'm judging the rest of the world. This is your problem, Extra Credits. Is you're trying to take your moral stance and have video games acknowledge it. Like with the Nazi video, because that's what that video was, your entire argument falls flat. It falls flat because you have no ground to stand on. You're trying to take morals, create it put it on the alignment spectrum, lawful, good, down to chaotic evil, and say that there's morals that all of these people know are good and evil. Good and evil is a matter of perspective. It always has been, it always will be. And by you guys trying to point out that, oh my, you might be racial coding a little bit, which is probably what that dude there, Rhodes, is going to go over, you are entirely missing the point of gaming. If you're looking for something to enlighten your experience and make you feel great that you're woke, do this for me. Make that video game, make it compelling, and I might play it. Until then, you're a bunch of never will be, has been types. And even if you worked on a AAA game, or even if you worked on a popular game, I've never heard of it. I've never seen extra dude from Extra Credits, whatever your name happens to be. I used to know it. Coded this video game or wrote this video game. And it's because if you try to put in this moral, this objective moral bullshit, it's not going to be fun to play. And it never will be. And yeah, this is going to be a long-ass video, and I don't care. But you guys need to step up your game. You need to take a look at how you are looking at the gaming industry. Because I'm going to be honest with you. The only reason I made this is because you kind of went after Warhammer. And even if I wouldn't have cared so much, but you try to imply that the Imperium of Man thinks that they're good and righteous people. No, they think that they are. But again, from the outside, the people reading those books, who are watching the games, who are playing Warhammer, they know they're not the good guys. That's the thing. I don't care if, who is it? If Ezio from Assassin's Creed thinks he's doing the right thing. The story is compelling. He doesn't question whether or not he's doing the right thing. He doesn't spend a lot of time dwelling on that. He's concerned about what the life has done to him. How he spent so many years murdering folk after folk after folk in an endless war that will never resolve. But you guys are trying to act like that's his default position. Like he's sitting there when he's trying to make sure that everyone in his Uncle Mario's village is safe. That's him making a moral decision. No. He never had the idea from the player's input to do that. That is story. That is an NPC at that time. We take back over, yes. But don't confuse a non-player character who has no choice with a player character who does have a choice. Don't confuse the player's morality with a gameplay mechanic. Which is what you constantly do in these videos. You constantly try to blur and muddy these fucking lines till they're non-existent. And then you try to act like it's the right thing to do. No. You are missing the point of playing games. I'm going to mention the other video one more time. You compared someone buying a World War II video game that is a first-person shooter with a primarily online multiplayer component as a bad thing. You try to make it seem like every character in the Germany's army in 1942 was an evil person and was a Nazi. Which isn't true. And I'm done. I really am done with this. This type of bullshit is constantly happening around us. The only way you can get rid of it is to expose it to the sunlight. This video, let's go ahead and check it out. I don't think I've got anything horrible on my list this week. Has 101,000 views, 9K upvotes, and 28,000 downvotes. And as you look through these comments, you'll find a lot of the shit I've said. The reality is that these guys don't know what they're talking about. They never have, and they never will. I'm going to say this one more time. Good morning, good night, good afternoon, wherever you are. May joy be to you all, and I hope you have a great day.